The chains were heavy. They bit into his wrists and ankles as the guards dragged him through the long corridor. Captain Marcus Cole did not struggle. He saved his strength and watched everything around him with careful eyes. The citadel of voices was beautiful in a cold way. The walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The ceiling rose so high that it disappeared into darkness. Strange symbols floated in the air, written in languages that Marcus did not understand. This place was ancient. It had stood here for thousands of years, long before humans had learned to make fire. The guards were not human. They belonged to a species called the Korith. They stood 8 feet tall and had 4 arms covered in thick gray scales. Their faces had no expression. They did not speak to Marcus. They simply pulled him forward like he was cargo. Marcus thought about his ship, the Wandering Star. He thought about his crew of 200 men and women. Where were they now? The attack had come without warning. One moment they were scanning an empty region of space. The next moment, enemy vessels surrounded them. The battle lasted only minutes. Human weapons could not break through the alien shields. Human armor could not stop the alien guns. They had taken Marcus alone to this place. They had taken his crew somewhere else. He did not know if they were alive or dead. The corridor ended at a massive door. It was made of black metal and covered with golden writing. The door opened slowly, and the guards pushed Marcus inside. The council chamber was enormous. It was shaped like a circle, and hundreds of seats rose up on all sides like a stadium. Every seat was filled. Marcus looked around and saw creatures of every shape and size. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had too many eyes or too many legs. Some floated in tanks of strange liquid. Some were made of living light. These were the rulers of the galaxy, the Galactic Concord, 47 species that had joined together 12,000 years ago. They controlled more stars than Marcus could count. They had ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They had weapons that could crack planets in half, and they all looked down at him like he was an insect. A platform floated in the center of the chamber. The guards forced Marcus onto it. He stood there in his chains, alone, surrounded by aliens who hated him. A voice spoke. It was loud and sharp, like metal scraping against metal. The prisoner will hear the charges against his species. Marcus looked up. The speaker sat on a tall throne at the highest point of the chamber. He was a Thurn, an insectoid creature, with a body like a praying mantis. His shell was dark purple, and his eyes were like black glass. This was High Arbiter Velkoth, the leader of the council. Velkoth continued speaking. Humanity stands accused of territorial violation. Your species has placed colonies on 3 worlds in the Kepler expanse. These worlds belong to the Concord. You were not given permission. You have broken our law. Marcus said nothing. He waited. Furthermore, Velkoth said, humanity has ignored 17 warnings to withdraw. Your government has refused to answer our messages. Your ships have fired upon conquered vessels that approached your illegal settlements. Around the chamber, delegates murmured to each other. Marcus heard anger in their voices. He heard disgust. An amphibian creature stood up. Its skin was wet and green, and it had gills on the sides of its neck. The Selthari Collective demands punishment, it said. These humans are like vermin. They breed too fast. They spread too far. They must be controlled. Another delegate spoke. This one was beautiful in a strange way. She had pale skin and silver hair, and her eyes were completely white. She wore robes that seemed to be made of starlight. Her voice was soft but cold. Humanity is a young species. They have been among the stars for only 400 years. They do not understand their place. We must teach them. More delegates spoke. They all said the same thing. Humans were primitive. Humans were dangerous. Humans needed to be stopped. Marcus listened to all of it. His face showed nothing. Finally, High Arbiter Velkoth raised one of his long arms. The chamber fell silent. "The Council has reached a decision," Velkoth announced. "Humanity will withdraw from all 14 colony worlds outside your home system. Humanity will surrender its fleet to Concord control. Humanity will accept protectorate status and submit to Concord authority in all matters." He leaned forward on his throne, his black eyes fixed on Marcus. "If humanity refuses, we will take your colonies by force. We will destroy your ships. We will occupy your homeworld. Your species will learn to obey, one way or another." The chamber erupted in sounds of approval. Delegates clicked and hissed and roared their agreement. The Concord had spoken. The matter was settled. But Marcus Cole smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of his lips. But in the sudden silence that followed, it was the loudest thing in the room. Velkoth stared at him. "You find this amusing, human?" Marcus did not answer immediately. He looked around the chamber slowly, meeting the eyes of as many delegates as he could. He saw their confusion. They had expected him to beg. They had expected him to cry or scream or fall to his knees. They had not expected this. "I find it interesting," Marcus finally said. His voice was calm and clear. "You bring me here in chains. You threaten my people. You demand our surrender. And you think we will simply agree. You have no choice," Velkoth said. "Your ships are primitive. Your weapons are weak. You cannot fight us." "Perhaps," Marcus said. "Perhaps not." Velkoth made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Do you understand what will happen if you refuse? Do you understand that we will destroy everything you have built?" Marcus looked directly at the High Arbiter. His eyes were steady. His voice did not shake. "I understand perfectly," he said. "The question is, do you?" The chamber fell completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. In that silence, something shifted. Most of the delegates did not notice it. They were too busy being angry or amused or confused. But one delegate noticed. She was very old. Older than anyone else in the chamber. She had 6 eyes and gray skin covered in ancient scars. Her name was Saveth, and she was the chronicler of the Concord. She had lived for 3,000 years and remembered things that others had forgotten. She looked at the human standing alone in the center of the chamber. She saw his smile. She saw his calm. And deep in her ancient heart, she felt something she had not felt in centuries. She felt afraid. The laughter started slowly. It began with a few delegates making sounds of amusement. Then, it spread. Soon the entire chamber was filled with the noise of aliens laughing at the small human in chains. The Selthari ambassador was the loudest. His wet, green body shook as he pointed at Marcus. "Listen to him! He thinks he can threaten us. My people conquered 3 star systems before humans learned to walk on 2 legs. What can they possibly do to us?" The Valeth Empress smiled her cold smile. "Human warships are metal coffins. We have watched them. They are slow. Their weapons are weak. Their shields fail after a few hits. We could destroy their entire fleet in an afternoon." More laughter. More mockery. High Arbiter Velkoth let it continue for a while. He seemed to enjoy watching the humans stand there while the whole galaxy laughed at him. Finally, he raised his arm again. "Perhaps," Velkoth said, "the human does not understand his situation. Perhaps he needs to see the truth." "Velkoth." He gestured. And a holographic display appeared in the air above Marcus. The display showed a video recording. Marcus recognized it immediately. It was the attack on his ship, the Wandering Star. The video showed everything. It showed how the Concord vessels appeared from nowhere. Their faster-than-light drives far superior to human technology. It showed how easily they disabled the Wandering Star's engines. It showed the human missiles bouncing off alien shields like rain off a window. It showed the crew being dragged from the ship and loaded onto transport vessels like cattle. "This is what happens when humans fight the Concord," Velkoth said. This is reality. Your ships cannot hurt us. Your weapons cannot scratch us. You are nothing. Marcus watched the video without expression. When it ended, he looked up at Velkoth. Is my crew alive? He asked. Velkoth made a dismissive gesture. For now. Their fate depends on you. Convince your government to surrender, and they will be returned safely. Refuse, and they will spend the rest of their short lives in labor camps. Marcus nodded slowly. Then he did something unexpected. He asked a question. Do you know why we came to the stars? The chamber fell quiet. The question was strange. It had nothing to do with politics or threats or war. Velkoth tilted his head. Why do any primitive species come to the stars? Curiosity. Greed. The foolish belief that the universe belongs to them. No, Marcus said. That is not why. He paused and looked around the chamber again. Every eye was on him now. Even the delegates, who had been laughing, were listening. Let me tell you about Earth, Marcus said. Let me tell you about humanity, he began to speak. His voice was not loud, but it carried through the entire chamber. Every translator device picked up his words and turned them into languages that all could understand. Earth is not a kind world, Marcus said. It is a world of ice and fire. It has deserts where no rain falls for years. It has oceans that can swallow you in seconds. It has storms that can flatten cities. The creatures that lived there had to fight every day just to survive. He shifted his weight, and his chains rattled. Humans were not the strongest creatures on Earth. We were not the fastest. We did not have claws or fangs or armor. We were soft and slow and weak. By every measure, we should have died out long ago. The Selthari ambassador snorted. And yet you did not. You are right, Marcus said. Survival alone proves nothing. But how we survived. That is important. He continued his story. We survived because we refused to give up. When the ice came and covered our world, we did not die. We learned to make fire. When larger animals hunted us, we did not hide. We learned to make weapons and hunt them instead. When disease killed millions of us, we did not accept it. We learned medicine and fought back. His voice grew stronger. We fought everything. We fought nature. We fought animals. We fought each other. Our history is written in blood. We have had 1,000 wars. We have seen empires rise and fall. We have killed each other with sticks and stones and bombs that can destroy cities. The chamber was completely silent now. No one was laughing anymore. And through all of it, through every disaster, and every war, and every plague, we never stopped. We never gave up. We climbed out of our caves and reached for the stars. Not because it was easy, because it was hard, because we refused to accept limits, because something inside us will not stop fighting until we are dead. He looked directly at Velkoth. You see our ships and think we are weak. You see our technology and think we are primitive. But you do not see what matters. You do not see 400 years of preparation. You do not see a species that has spent its entire existence learning how to fight and win against impossible odds. Velkoth leaned back on his throne. His black eyes showed nothing, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. Pretty words, but words do not win wars. No, Marcus agreed. They do not. He straightened his back. Despite the chains, despite being surrounded by enemies, he looked like a man in complete control. You have taken my ship. You hold my crew hostage. You demand that my people kneel before you. I was sent here to negotiate. I was sent here to find peace. He paused. But I see now that you do not want peace. You want slaves. You want to crush us under your feet and use us as servants. You have already made your choice. None. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. So I will make mine, Marcus said. You want war. He smiled that small, terrible smile again. You shall have it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the laughter returned. It was louder than before, more desperate somehow. As if the delegates needed to laugh to convince themselves that the humans' words meant nothing. War? The Selthari ambassador shouted. You declare war on the Galactic Concord? On 47 species? On 10,000 worlds? You are insane. On 47. War. You are insane. The Valeth Empress shook her head. Humans truly are stupid. They do not know when they are beaten. Velkoth raised his arm for silence. Take the prisoner back to his cell. Let him think about his foolishness. Tomorrow, we will send our response to Earth. We will show them what happens to species that challenge the Concord. The guards grabbed Marcus and began to drag him away. He did not resist. He did not need to. As he was pulled through the great doors, he looked back one last time. His eyes found the old delegate with 6 eyes, the one who had not laughed. For a brief moment, their eyes met. She saw something in his face. Not anger. Not fear. Something worse. Certainty. After the doors closed and the human was gone, the chamber erupted in conversation. Delegates argued about the best way to punish humanity. They discussed which fleets to send and which worlds to strike first. But Chronicler Saaveth did not join the discussion. She rose from her seat and made her way to the ancient archives deep beneath the citadel. There was something she needed to find. An old report, written centuries ago, after humanity's first contact with a Concord scout ship. It had seemed unimportant at the time, a minor skirmish, a few damaged ships. Nothing worth remembering. But Saaveth remembered a phrase from that report. A human term that the translators had struggled to explain. Total war. She needed to understand what it meant. Because, looking into that human's eyes, she had seen something that terrified her. The message traveled at the speed of light through quantum relays hidden across human space. It was short. Only 3 words. But those 3 words changed everything. Prometheus is awake. On Earth, deep beneath the old city of Geneva, alarms began to sound. Men and women in military uniforms ran through underground corridors that had been built in secret over 2 centuries. Massive doors opened. Computer screens flickered to life. The United Earth Defense Council was activating. Admiral Yuki Tanaka received the message in her quarters. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served in the human fleet for 40 years. She had fought pirates and rebels and rogue colonies. She had never lost a battle. But she had never fought the Concord before. She walked into the main command center. 50 officers were already at their stations, their faces lit by the glow of holographic displays. They all looked at her when she entered. Report, she said. The Wandering Star was captured in Sector 7, a young officer said. Captain Cole was taken to the Citadel. His crew was transported to a holding facility in Thurn space. The Concord has issued demands for total surrender. Tanaka nodded. She had expected this. They all had. And Captain Cole's status? He activated the dead man's switch before capture. The signal was sent successfully. Tanaka allowed herself a small smile. Marcus Cole was a brave man. He had known what would happen when he flew into that sector. He had known the Concord would capture him. That was the plan. Begin Operation Prometheus, she ordered. All units, all systems, wake them up. The officers moved quickly. Messages flew out across human space. And across 14 worlds, humanity began to reveal its true face. The galaxy believed that humans were primitive. They believed that human ships were slow and weak. They believed that human weapons were toys compared to Concord technology. They believed this because humanity wanted them to believe it. For 200 years, humanity had played a role. They had built ships that looked primitive. They had used weapons that seemed outdated. They had sent diplomats who acted humble and grateful for any scraps the Concord offered. It was all a lie. On Mars, massive doors opened in the red desert. Ships rose from underground hangars. Ships that no alien had ever seen. They were sleek and fast, built with technology that humanity had developed in secret. Their hulls were covered in stealth materials that could hide them from any sensor. Their engines could push them to speeds that Concorde ships could not match. On Titan, factories that had pretended to make mining equipment began producing weapons. Railguns that could fire metal slugs at 3% of the speed of light. Missiles with AI guidance systems that could track targets across millions of kilometers. Bombs that could crack a planet's crust. On Europa, training facilities released soldiers who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. They were not normal troops. They were special forces, trained to fight in any environment, against any enemy. They knew how to kill Thurn. They knew how to kill Selthari. They knew the weaknesses of every Concorde species. Across human space, the mask was falling away, and what lay beneath was terrifying. Admiral Tanaka watched the reports come in. Fleet after fleet reporting ready. Weapons systems online. Soldiers standing by. 200 years of secret preparation, all coming together in one moment. How long until full mobilization? She asked. 6 hours, her aide replied. All primary assets will be in position. Tanaka turned to the main display. It showed a map of the galaxy with human space marked in blue. It was a small area compared to the vast territories of the Concorde. But size was not everything. Open a channel, she said. All frequencies. I want the Concorde to hear this. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, Admiral. Tanaka stood straight. Her voice was calm and clear. This message is for the Galactic Concorde and all member species. I am Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the United Earth Defense Fleet. She paused to let her words sink in. You have captured one of our ships. You hold our people prisoner. You have demanded our complete surrender. I am here to give you our response. On the Citadel of Voices, High Arbiter Velkoth received the transmission in his private chamber. He watched the small human woman speak with a mixture of annoyance and amusement. What could she possibly say that would matter? You have 12 standard hours, Tanaka continued. In that time, you will release Captain Marcus Cole and the crew of the Wandering Star. You will return all seized human property. You will withdraw your forces from human space. Velkoth laughed. The human was making demands? After everything that had happened? If you do not comply, Tanaka said, we will consider this an act of war. Her eyes seemed to look directly at Velkoth through the screen. You believe we are weak. You believe we are primitive. You are wrong. We have prepared for this day for 200 years. Every ship you have seen, every weapon you have analyzed, every weakness you think you have found, all of it was a deception. She leaned forward slightly. You do not know what we are capable of. But if you force us to show you, you will never forget. We do not want war. We have never wanted war. But if war comes, we will fight with everything we have. We will not stop until victory is complete. The transmission ended. Velkoth stared at the empty screen for a long moment. Then, he called for his advisors. Within an hour, the council had made its decision. They would not surrender to human threats. They would send a fleet to destroy humanity's nearest colony as a show of force. 500 warships began moving toward the human world called New Horizon. But while the Concorde prepared its attack, chronicler Saveth finally found what she was looking for. The old report was buried deep in the archives. It described a minor incident from centuries ago. A Concorde scout ship had encountered a human vessel in neutral space. There had been a brief exchange of fire. The human ship was destroyed, but before it died, it had rammed the Concorde vessel at full speed, crippling it. The report noted this behavior as unusual. Most species tried to retreat when they were losing. They tried to survive. But the humans had done the opposite. They had used their dying ship as a weapon. The report also contained a translation of a human communication intercepted during the fight. The human captain had said something to his crew before the final attack. If we die, we take them with us. Saveth read the words again and again. She thought about what the prisoner Marcus Cole had said. She thought about the calm certainty in his eyes. She thought about the message from Admiral Tanaka. Then she found another document, an analysis of human military history. It described something called the Doctrine of Total War. It explained how humans fought not just to win battles, but to completely destroy their enemy's ability to fight. They targeted factories and farms and cities. They attacked morale and willpower. They did not stop when they were winning. They stopped when the enemy could never rise again. Savith closed the file. Her 6 eyes stared at nothing. The Concorde had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They had fought many wars, but those wars had rules. They had limits. Ships fought ships. Armies fought armies. Civilians were spared. Worlds were not destroyed. But humans did not play by those rules. They never had. Savith stood up and walked to the council chamber. She had to warn them. She had to make them understand what they were about to face. But as she walked, she feared it was already too late. The beast was awake. And it was angry. The Concorde fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the planet, called New Horizon. 500 warships arranged themselves in perfect formation. Their commanders were confident. This would be easy. New Horizon was one of humanity's newest colonies. It had only 2 million people. According to Concorde intelligence, it was defended by a small garrison of outdated ships. The attack would be over in hours. The planet would burn, and humanity would learn its place. Fleet Commander Vrex of the Koreth was in charge of the operation. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue and green world grow larger on his screens. Soon, it would be ash. "Scan for enemy vessels," he ordered. His sensors officer worked quickly. Then he stopped. He checked his readings again. His 4 arms began to shake. "Commander," he said, "I am detecting human ships." "How many?" Vrex asked. He expected to hear 20 or 30. 200, Commander. "And they are not the same ships we have seen before." Vrex frowned and looked at his own display. What he saw made his blood turn cold. The human ships were unlike anything in the Concorde database. They were sleek and dark, almost invisible against the blackness of space. They moved with a speed and grace that should have been impossible. And they were already spreading out, surrounding the Concorde fleet. "This cannot be right," Vrex said. "Run the scan again." Before his officer could respond, a message came through on all channels. A human face appeared on every screen in the fleet. It was a young woman with short black hair and calm eyes. "Concorde Fleet, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the 2nd Human Fleet. You have entered human space with hostile intent. You have 11 minutes to reverse course and withdraw. If you do not, we will open fire." Vrex stared at the screen. 11 minutes? What kind of ultimatum was that? And only 200 ships against his 500? "The humans are bluffing," he declared. "All ships. Prepare to attack. We will crush them, and then destroy their world." The Concorde fleet began to move. Their weapons powered up. Their shields activated. They had done this 1,000 times before, against 100 different species. They knew how to win, but they had never fought humans before. The Battle of New Horizon lasted exactly 11 minutes. The humans struck first. They did not form neat lines like the Concorde expected. They scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that seemed random but were precisely calculated. Concorde targeting computers struggled to track them. Then the weapons fired. Human railguns launched metal projectiles at 3% of the speed of light. At that velocity, a piece of iron the size of a fist carried more energy than a nuclear bomb. Concorde shields were designed to stop energy weapons, lasers, and plasma and particle beams. They were not designed to stop solid objects moving at impossible speeds. The first volley destroyed 40 Concorde ships before they could even fire back. Vrex watched in horror as his fleet began to die. Ships exploded around him. Commanders screamed for orders. Nothing made sense anymore. "Return fire," he shouted. Destroy them, his ships tried. They fired their weapons at the human vessels. But the humans were too fast. They twisted and dodged with movements that should have torn their crews apart. And when a Concorde weapon did hit, the human shields held. They were not the primitive barriers that Concorde intelligence had reported. They were something new. Something better. Worse than that, the humans did not fight like any enemy Vrex had seen before. When one of their ships was damaged, it did not retreat. It accelerated toward the nearest Concorde vessel and rammed it at full speed. The explosions were catastrophic for both sides, but the humans did not seem to care. They were willing to die if it meant taking enemies with them. By the 5th minute, the conquered fleet was in chaos. Ships were fleeing in all directions. Commanders were abandoning their posts. The perfect formation had become a scattered mess of burning wreckage. By the 8th minute, Fleet Commander Vrex was dead. His flagship had been hit by 6 railgun rounds. It broke apart silently in the cold vacuum of space. By the 11th minute, it was over. Of the 500 Concorde ships, 340 were destroyed. 112 had surrendered, their crews too terrified to keep fighting. The rest had fled into faster-than-light travel, running as fast as their engines could carry them. Human losses: 31 ships. The news reached the Citadel of Voices within hours. High Arbiter Velkoth received the report in his private chamber. He read it 3 times. He did not believe it. "This is impossible," he said. His aide stood nearby, trembling. "The reports are confirmed, High Arbiter. Multiple sources. The fleet is gone." Velkoth threw the data tablet against the wall. It shattered into pieces. In the council chamber, panic was spreading. Delegates screamed at each other. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others demanded surrender. 3 species announced that they were withdrawing from the Concorde entirely. They wanted no part of a war against humanity. The Valeth Empress sat in shocked silence. Her beautiful face was pale. She had called human ships metal coffins. Now, those coffins had killed tens of thousands of Concorde soldiers. The Selthari ambassador had fled the chamber entirely. Only Chronicler Savith remained calm. She stood before the council and spoke in her ancient, tired voice. "I warned you," she said. "I tried to tell you what these humans were." "Then tell us now," someone shouted. "Tell us how to stop them." Savith shook her head slowly. "You do not understand. The Concorde has ruled for 12,000 years. We have fought many wars, but our wars have rules. We fight, we negotiate, we make peace. We do not destroy everything." She looked around the chamber with her 6 ancient eyes. Humans are different. They come from a world of constant struggle. They have spent their entire existence fighting for survival. When they go to war, they do not fight to win battles. They fight to end wars. They attack everything: ships, stations, factories, supply lines, morale. They do not stop when they are ahead. They stop when the enemy can never threaten them again. She pointed toward the main display, which showed the burning wreckage of the Concorde fleet. "This is not a battle. This is a message. They are telling us what will happen if we continue to fight. They will not stop at our fleets. They will come for our worlds. They will break our economy. They will shatter our alliance. They will make us afraid to ever challenge them again." The chamber fell silent. "Then what do we do?" Velkoth demanded. His voice was not as strong as before. Before Saveth could answer, every screen in the chamber flickered. A new face appeared. Admiral Yuki Tanaka looked down at the assembled delegates. "Members of the Galactic Concorde," she said. "You have seen what happens when you attack human worlds. You have lost your fleet. You have lost your soldiers. You have lost the illusion of your invincibility." Her eyes were hard. "You have 12 more hours. Release Captain Cole and his crew. Return our property. Agree to formal negotiations as equals, or we will come to you." number. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Velkoth looked around the chamber. He saw fear on every face. He saw the alliance that had lasted 12,000 years, beginning to crack. And somewhere in a cell beneath the citadel, Captain Marcus Cole heard distant alarms. He heard shouting and running footsteps. He smelled smoke. He smiled. The war had begun. And humanity was winning. The Council was breaking apart. Species that had stood together for thousands of years were now fighting each other. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to launch every ship they had at Earth. Most just wanted to survive. High Arbiter Velkoth stood in the center of the chaos. His authority was crumbling. His fleet was destroyed. His threats had proven empty. He had only one option left. He would kill the human prisoner. "Bring Captain Cole to the execution chamber," he ordered. "We will broadcast his death across the galaxy. We will show everyone what happens to those who defy the Concord." His guards hurried to obey. Within minutes, Marcus Cole was dragged from his cell and brought to a platform overlooking the council chamber. His hands were still bound. His uniform was dirty and torn, but his eyes were calm. Cameras activated. The broadcast began. Trillions of beings across thousands of worlds watched as the human was forced to his knees. Velkoth stood before him, holding an energy blade that glowed with blue fire. "Any last words, human?" he asked. Marcus looked up at him. "You should have listened to Saveth." Velkoth raised the blade, and then the citadel shook. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. The floor trembled as if struck by a giant fist. Velkoth stumbled backward, dropping his weapon. "What is happening?" he demanded. An officer rushed to a console. His face went pale. "A ship has docked with the station. It appeared from nowhere. We never saw it coming. Destroy it." "We cannot, High Arbiter. It is already inside our shields." The lights went out. Emergency power activated, casting everything in dim red. Somewhere in the station, explosions echoed through the corridors. Through the chaos, Marcus Cole laughed. The rescue team moved through the citadel like ghosts. There were only 12 of them, but they had trained for this their entire lives. They knew every corridor. They knew every weakness. They had studied the station's blueprints for years. Their leader was a woman named Lieutenant Commander Akira Reed. She had served in the Special Forces for 15 years. She had fought in the darkest corners of human space. She was not afraid of anything. "Target is 50 meters ahead," she reported through her helmet radio. "Resistance is light. These people have never fought infantry combat before." The Concord had always relied on ship battles. Their ground forces were ceremonial, meant for parades and police work. They had never faced soldiers who were bred for close combat. Reed and her team cut through them in minutes. They reached the execution chamber just as Velkoth was scrambling for his weapon. A stun round hit him in the chest, and he collapsed. Two soldiers grabbed Marcus and cut his chains. "Captain Cole," Reed said. Marcus rubbed his wrists where the chains had dug into his skin. "My crew? A second team is extracting them as we speak. They'll be safe within the hour." "They're—" Marcus nodded. He looked around the chamber. The cameras were still broadcasting. Trillions of beings were watching this moment. They were watching humans save their captain from the heart of the enemy's power. He walked toward the viewing window that looked down on the council chamber. The delegates were in total panic. Some were fleeing for the exits. The mighty Galactic Concord, reduced to frightened animals. Marcus spoke, knowing they could hear him through the intercom. "You could have had partners," he said. His voice carried through the chamber, through the broadcast, through the galaxy. "You could have had friends. We came to the stars hoping to find equals. We came hoping to learn from you. We came hoping to be part of something greater than ourselves." He shook his head slowly. "Instead, you saw us as insects. You laughed at us. You threatened us. You tried to enslave us. And when we refused to bow, You tried to destroy us. He paused, letting his words sink in. We did not want this war. We never wanted it. For 200 years, we prepared and hoped we would never have to fight. But you gave us no choice. He looked directly at the cameras. The Concord ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years. That time is over. Not because we are conquerors, not because we want your worlds or your wealth, but because you proved you could not be trusted with power. You abused it. You used it to crush anyone weaker than you. His voice softened. We will not be your enemies forever. But you will remember this day. For the next 1,000 years, your children will tell stories about what happened here. They will remember that you were warned. They will remember that you did not listen. He turned away from the window. We will not stop until we know we are safe. But when we are safe, we will offer peace. Real peace. Not the peace of masters and slaves. The peace of equals. Reed touched his arm. Captain, we need to go. Marcus nodded. He followed her toward the extraction point. Behind him, the council chamber remained in chaos. But one figure did not run. Chronicler Savith stood still in the middle of the panic. She watched the human leave, and she understood. The Concord had created its own destruction. Through arrogance and cruelty, they had awakened something they could not control. Now, they would pay the price. The war continued for 2 years. But it was not a war of conquest. Humanity did not seek to rule the galaxy. Instead, they broke the Concord's power piece by piece. They destroyed military stations. They disrupted supply lines. They showed the galaxy that the Concord could not protect its members. One by one, species left the alliance. Some joined a new coalition, led by humanity. Others declared independence. The Thurn Dominion, once the most powerful member of the Concord, was forced to surrender after human ships disabled every orbital station above their homeworld. Not destroyed, disabled. A message that humanity could have done worse, but chose not to. Velkoth was tried for war crimes and imprisoned. He lived the rest of his days in a cell, alone with his memories of failure. The Concord still existed, but it was a shadow of what it had been. Its territory had shrunk, its power had faded. It would never again threaten humanity or anyone else. 10 years after the war ended, a new treaty was signed on the rebuilt citadel. They had renamed it Unity Station. Humanity was not there as conquerors. They were there as founding members of a new alliance, the Terran Accords, alongside 20 species that had once been their enemies. Captain Marcus Cole, now an admiral, represented humanity at the signing. He was older now, with gray in his hair and lines on his face, but his eyes were still sharp. His back was still straight. Across the table sat a young Thurn diplomat. She was the granddaughter of the former High Arbiter Velkoth. Her name was Saraketh, and she had spent her life trying to repair the damage her grandfather had caused. After the ceremony, she approached Marcus. "Admiral Cole," she said. Her voice was soft, uncertain. "May I ask you something?" "Of course." She hesitated. "That day, when you stood before the council in chains, when they laughed at you and threatened to destroy everything you loved, did you know? Did you know what would happen?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment. He thought about the years of preparation. He thought about the ships that had waited in secret hangars. He thought about the soldiers who had trained for a war they hoped would never come. He thought about Admiral Tanaka and Lieutenant Commander Reed and all the others who had believed in humanity's plan. "I knew what humanity was capable of," he said finally. "I hoped I would never have to show you." He looked out the viewport at the stars. So many stars. So many worlds. So many possibilities. "We never wanted war," he said. "We wanted to explore. We wanted to learn. We wanted to find our place among the stars." He turned back to the young diplomat. "But we were always ready. We learned from our own history that peace is not something you can take for granted. It must be protected. Sometimes that means being strong enough that no one dares to attack you." End of part. Saraketh nodded slowly. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. The past is past, he said. What matters now is what we build together. Your grandfather saw us as enemies. I hope you see us as partners. I do, she said. I hope we can prove that we deserve your trust. Marcus smiled. It was not the cold smile he had worn in the council chamber all those years ago. It was warm, genuine, full of hope. Then let us begin. He walked toward the main chamber, where the delegates were waiting. The galaxy had changed. The old order was gone. Something new was rising in its place. Humanity had come to the stars hoping to find friends. They had found enemies instead. But through fire and blood and sacrifice, they had earned something better than friendship. They had earned respect, and the galaxy would never forget.